So after two space theme seasons in Space and Lost Galaxy, what was Saban to do? Keep riding the space train or revert back to basics, go to Earth? Well, they did both. They went back to Earth and went back to basics. Why do I say went back to basics? Because I do consider Lightspeed Rescue a more broadened, a more expanded upon MMPR Season 1. It has a lot of similar elements to Mighty Morphin Season 1, a lot of similar story arcs, but more fleshed out, more interesting, and overall better experience. Now, surprisingly, when I went through and looked at what some of the community thought of the season, it's pretty bashed upon, considered to be a really bland, boring season. I've seen the season twice over the span of the last 2 years. This was the first season I rewatched when I got back into Power Rangers, and I watched it again for my first review earlier. This is my second review now. And I honestly consider Lightspeed Rescue to be a hidden gem in the franchise. I really don't have many problems with Lightspeed overall. Most of the problems span to things that Lost Galaxy did right, and vice versa. So, I'll save that for later, but there is a story to talk about. And you'll see what I mean about its comparisons to MMPR Season 1 as we go. We start off in a desert with a bunch of travelers finding a tomb and releasing demons. We cut to the city called Mariner Bay when the commander of Operation Lightspeed is informed by his daughter Dana that the demons have escaped and he wants to summon or wants to call in the people who he's had his eye on. Joel Rawlings, who is a stunt pilot, Chad Lee, who is a entertainer at like SeaWorld, let's go with that. Kelsey, I can't remember her last name, who is an extreme sportist. I was going to say sportist. I'm going to use that word anyway. And Carter Grayson, a firefighter. All the others are recruited until we get to Carter, who is saving a little girl, and he sees a monster in the fire that knocks him out. They get pulled into the Lightspeed Aqua Base and told of the situation, that there are demons loose, that the city Mariner Bay was built over a demon temple, and the demons have been free to try to take the city down so they can get their temple back. Lightspeed was built to counteract these demons and fight the forces off. These were chosen due to their skills and abilities. Makes sense. Once again, looking like Mighty Morphin Season 1, huh? Fighting demons or magic users. But they use magic too. Diabolico, Loci, Vipra use magic. Pulling 5 civilians from their everyday lives to fight magical demons using technology. Yeah, sounds a lot like Day of the Dumpster. And even more so like Day of the Dumpster, Joel doesn't necessarily believe and wants to leave. When Carter says that he saw one of the demons in the fire and showed the demons running around on screen, they all decide to pitch in and go for it. They morph and fight a monster that looks very similar to Psycho Red's monster form, saving the day. The next episode, we get introduced to Dr. Fairweather, who's the lead scientist who's created the rescue morphers, the suits, the Megazords, all of their weapons. Everything was built from her hands. Really smart lady. And Joel immediately crushes on her, which is a thing that'll kind of expand over the season with Joel chasing her down. There are actually some really funny moments through his little journey of trying to get Dr. Fairweather to go with him, where he keeps thinking she's asking him out and all this stuff, and he ends up making a fool of himself. Like, there's this one episode, and I'm about to talk about it too because it's kind of a relevant episode, where she thanks him for saving her, and she says, "I want to have dinner with you, Joel." So he dresses up in a tuxedo, gets flowers, walks up, and the entire team is there. And she didn't tell him it was going to be the entire team. So he looks like an idiot. The struggles of a single man. The story of Joel Rawlings. He's one of my favorite Green Rangers because of that. Because You can relate to his struggles if you're a guy. So Queen Bansheera is the queen of the demons, and she has a son called Impus. One of the things we're trying to do is find a way to resurrect Queen Bansheera. She's basically like in the spirit world or something. So she comes back and releases a couple monsters to try to cause a volcano to go off. They go, and the Lightspeed Megazord gets, I got hair on my laptop, gets thrashed by these two monsters. Miss Fairweather takes the train that they have, that basically carries their rescue Zords, and converts it into its own Megazord called the Super Train Megazord, which is one of my favorite Megazords of all time because this thing is freaking ridiculous. It's huge, it has missile launchers, it has turbine lasers, it's just like twice the size of everything else that they've ever had. Like, it's literally twice the size of the Rescue Megazord. This thing is insane, and it looks awesome while doing it. Train flies into the air, it puts itself together in the air, and then just starts grinding on rail tracks. I love it. I love Super Train. She's also working on a new Ranger Morpher. We see Carter trying to test out this Titanium Morpher, but the thing is too powerful for Carter to handle. So they basically scrap the idea of it, and Captain Mitchell puts it in like his safe locker or something. We see someone sneak onto the Aqua Base and take it. Pretty impressive, huh? Because the Aqua Base is like, what, bottom of the ocean or something. The Rangers go out to fight Viper, and she summons the Titanium Ranger. Cool few notes about the Titanium Ranger. One, he never had a Go-Go 5 counterpart. Very first American-made Ranger, made exclusively for Lightspeed Rescue. The reason why is because I think they said that the writers of Lightspeed didn't want to break this tradition of having a 6th Ranger, so they made one, which I don't quite understand why they were worried about that, because I don't think Turbo really had a 6th Ranger. Some people consider it the Phantom Ranger, some people consider it the Blue Centurion, but there really wasn't a true 6th Ranger to Turbo anyway, so. 2, his suit is kind of based off of Turbo Ranger. And 3, his visor is a V. V being Roman numeral for 5, Go-Go 5. Overall, I do really like the Titanium Ranger suit. It's really, really sweet. But it does do something odd where most 6th Ranger suits take the base suit design and kind of like warp it into a certain color scheme. Except for the go on wings, but that's a different story. But his suit looks nothing like the rest of the Lightspeed Ranger suits with the Umbrella Corporation design on their chests, but it works. And cool little note is that I didn't get my Titanium Ranger mask, which I wore at the beginning of my first review of this season, is that it has like this little M thing on his visor, which is cool because that's the same thing inscripted on the Solar Max Megazord. Now, the Solar Max Megazord was a sentient fighting robot in Go-Go 5. It had no pilot, but they decided to make a Titanium Ranger specific Megazord in Lightspeed Rescue. They really did a good job making the very first American-made Ranger, and it's one of the reasons why I like him so much, alongside that I actually think he's a cool character in his own right. I'm getting ahead of myself here. Titanium Ranger starts off by mopping the warehouse floor with the Lightspeed Rangers, and they have to abandon mission because they can't fight him. The next episode, they get their V-Lancers, which is a team weapon, kind of like a lance, bow staff, gun combination thing. It's really cool. And they blast Titanium Ranger, opening his visor, and Captain Mitchell sees that it's his son. Now, there was a backstory with this where Dana had a brother named Ryan. And when they were driving home when they were kids from like their grandparents or something, their car fell off or was knocked off a bridge, and they were hanging on a tree root for their lives, with Ryan hanging on to Captain Mitchell's foot. He was gonna fall when Diabolico somehow shows up. When I say somehow, because he was supposed to be sealed away in a tomb. But he's a spirit here, not a physical embodiment. So maybe they could roam around as spirits? I don't know. They don't make that clear. kind of can be considered a plot hole. Depends on how you look at it. Because I mean, if he could take physical form like that, why didn't he? So maybe they could just roam around as spirits, but they could never actually become like a physical being or something. I don't know. But Diabolico says, I can save your son, but he'll be mine until his 20th birthday. Of course, Captain Mitchell doesn't agree to it until Ryan falls and he tells him to do it. Diabolico basically screws Ryan's mind, telling him that, oh, Captain Mitchell abandoned you and only cared about his daughter, Dana, and stuff. So he's basically been astronomed, told the wrong end of the story so he could be evil and work for the demons. Captain Mitchell confronts him and they try to set things right when Ryan tackles Captain Mitchell off a cliff and they're put in the same situation of being hung off of a root jetting out of the side of a cliff. The root starts to give way and Captain Mitchell says, I'm going to make up for it, and he jumps. Ryan, snapping his senses on, and jumps after morphing the Titanium Ranger, saving him. He drops his morpher and leaves, wanting to leave Mariner Bay to get his head straight to figure out who he really is. Captain Mitchell gives him a box, telling him not to open it until he finally figures out that he's really a good person. While this is happening, Queen Bansheera is headed up to hear with Diabolico's crap and says, if you don't, finish off the Rangers soon, I'm going to give your power to Impus. So he sends his last 3 monsters at the Rangers, and one of them sends off a whole bunch of feathers that blow up when the sun sets. Ryan figures this out, or notices this on a newscast, when he's about to leave and goes to help a family that he gave a feather to. He opens the box and sees his morpher, and these 3 monsters were kicking the Lightspeed Rangers' butts around. Ryan comes in, morphs into the Titanium Ranger, and then just tosses these 3 fools around. Which is one thing I will say about the Titanium Ranger. We never seen him once have trouble fighting a monster. Which is one reason why I consider him one of the strongest Rangers in the franchise. Because like I said, we never actually saw him have trouble with anything. Every time he fought somebody, he single-handedly beat them up. Like easy cheesy, no problems asked. So he decides to stay. But when he goes to bed that night, Diabolico gets into his head and gives him a dream of him getting a snake tattoo on his back. Every time he morphs into Titanium Ranger, the thing would slither up his back, and when he gets to his neck, it'll bite him and kill him. Now, he wakes up saying, oh, this was just a dream, until he looks at his back and sees that the Cobra tattoo is actually there. He hides it from everybody because he doesn't want them to take away his powers, because he feels like he can redeem himself this way, and he doesn't want to be taken out of the fray so easily. They go to fight the monsters, and the Cobra hurts him as he fights. Carter ends up seeing the tattoo on his back and says, well, we have to tell you something about this, but Ryan's like, no, hide it from my dad. But Captain Mitchell overhears him, taking away his morpher and telling him not to fight because we don't want you to die, obviously. And he gets the Solar Max Megazord too, but he says he can't use it because he has to morph to fight. They end up destroying Diabolico once Ryan goes to find the source of the tattoo, which is a snake monster in the tomb where the demons were buried. He kills the monster, comes back and forms the Solar Max Megazord, Lightspeed Solar Zord, which is basically the Solar Max fused with the Lightspeed Megazord, and they take Diabolico's energy and blow him up, killing Diabolico, and his power goes to Olympius. Queen Bansheera confronts the Rangers, well, kind of, like in a spiritual sense, and says that Diabolico's gone, but my son will be here to clean up after his mess. Enter Olympius, who is Impus's fully grown form. This guy is ridiculously powerful. Like, really powerful. There's a two-parter, a two-parter in here where they try to resurrect Bansheera, but Ryan stops the ceremony and she's brought back into physical form, partially being like a big tumor or something with like her face hanging on it. So she's back, kind of. Ryan, being kind of smart, saying that there's no real way we can defeat the monsters. We're just holding them off for now. We have to find a way to seal these guys off for good. So I'm going to go on a journey, seeing how I'm the one that knew about them the most. I'm going to go to this tomb and see if there's a way we can seal them off while you guys keep protecting the city. So, real smart action there, Ryan. We get introduced to the Omega Megazord in the next episode after trying to save the planet from a meteor crash. And this thing's really too cool also because it's 5 Zords that turn into like a Mars crawler thing, and then it turns into the Omega Megazord. I'm not sure if this thing is stronger than Super Train, but it seems like it is at times. So after a while, she gets sick of Olympius' failures too, Queen Banshira. So much for caring for her son so much, and tries to put Loki and Viper in charge. Olympius figures this out and basically sends those two away. They revive Diabolico, saving him from the tomb, while Ryan, sees from a distance. Diabolico comes back and confronts Olympius, trying to get his star power back, but Queen Banshira is like, stop this. We don't have time for your idiocy. Stop trying to kill each other. We're on the same side. That's putting it nicely. Ryan continues to basically get the hieroglyphics and find a way to find them. Cut to Mirror where we see Leo pull a Quasar Saber out and go after some monsters, coming back to Earth after going through a wormhole. What is up with lights? What is up with Lost Galaxy and wormholes? He bumps into all of the Lightspeed Rangers but Carter, as Carter is trying to help this girl figure out why her parents are getting kidnapped inside of an office building. Carter meets up with Damon and Maya, saving him from a bunch of these new monsters. I don't remember what their names are. And they go to the Aqua Base saying that these monsters traveled here because they need life energy for Trakina, who apparently survived the fight at the end of Lost Galaxy. The other Galaxy Rangers show up as Carter and Leo go out up to the building and try to save everybody, and Trakina knocks them all out. The Rangers morph and fight some of Diabolico's batlings, while he poisons the energy that's being floated into Trakina, and she turns into this giant insect monster. The Super Train, the Omega Megazord and the Lightspeed Megazord, the Galaxy Megazord have trouble against her, and the Galaxy Megazord gets knocked out. So the Lightspeed Rangers put them inside the cockpit and activate the Lights of Orion on the Omega Megazord, and they finish off Trakina that way. And the Galaxy Rangers head back to Mirnoi. Once again, really weird team up. There's a little girl that was like heavily focused in this episode. I don't know why. It was really stupid. A lot of Go-Go 5 versus Ginga Man footage used in this episode also. Most Power Rangers tribute episodes are original footage, and I think this one and the Zeo Alien team-up are the only two that rely on Sentai footage. So it does kind of make it underwhelming. How the Galaxy Rangers got to Earth is another question. But then again, Lost Galaxy had a fetish for wormholes and space or something. I don't know. It wasn't the best team up in the world, but I think next season's is probably the worst team up in Power Rangers history. I'll talk about that one when I get to it. But all in all, it's nice to see two teams team up again, even if they aren't very good. They're always fun to see. So Ryan gets the hieroglyphics, writes them down, and goes to find the Warrior of the Sand, who is basically a wizard somewhere in Egypt. I'm assuming that's where this is. While the Rangers were sucked into an alternate dimension, kind of like where all the previous monsters they destroyed have gone, the Rangers somehow get out, leaving Olympius behind, and Diabolico gets put back in charge. The wizard that Ryan finds tries to seal the demons away, but Diabolico uses a counter spell and destroys the wizard. Olympius, in order to escape, has to kill all the monsters and absorb them, turning into like his full form. Queen Banshira says, well, I'm so close to being restored. I need to absorb a little bit more life force, so she absorbs Viper and becomes her full form again. Diabolico and Lokai have like a little bonding moment here, which a lot of people says comes out of nowhere, but I kind of disagree. I mean, we've seen once Olympia showed up, Viper and Lokai dissed him, didn't like him. And when Diabolico came back, they basically sided with him, meaning that Lokai and Viper had respect for Diabolico. So there is some signs of respect. I think the fact that they use the term friendship here is what threw people off. I mean, you can be loyal to someone and be friends with them also. So I think they did hint at this a little bit in the earlier parts. You can kind of see it in their actions, but they never actually verbally addressed it until just now. So, I mean, I think it works. They do show signs and hints of them being really closely united. So this doesn't come out of left field like everybody says it does. Banshira doesn't care for these guys, though. She sees them as expendable and forces, well, the Rangers gets brought into Banshira's dimension and uses Lokai as a sacrifice, having Diabolico kill Lokai, trying to destroy the Rangers. Diabolico's had it up to here with Banshira's crap and denounces his loyalty to her, going rogue, basically. Olympius and Diabolico have a fight, with Olympius winning, bringing Diabolico back to Banshira, and she turns him into a puppet for Olympius. Basically, they destroy the Omega Megazord, kind of, but Kelsey and Dana show up with the Life Force Megazord, which is kind of like a right, it's kind of like a repainted Solar Max Lightspeed Solar Zord. Yeah, Lightspeed Solar Zord. I just had my mom walk in saying that she's home now, so sorry about that. Basically, what it does is that when it like hooks to them and drains their life energy and uses it as power. Risky, but it can become a real powerhouse, and it ends up destroying Olympius and Diabolico at the same time. So they're gone. But Finster, I think that's his name. Finster, I keep getting him and Jinxter. Yeah, Finster is the dude from Mighty Morphin. I keep getting their names mixed up because they're kind of similar in what they do. Jinxter puts a card on the Life Force Megazord, and when they take it back to the Lightspeed Aqua Base, he activates it, and Batlings just swarm the Aqua Base. Ryan gets kidnapped by a Banshura, and Carter goes to save him in the temple, trying to interrupt her ceremony by placing stones around, like in a circle, and waiting for an eclipse to happen to where she can use this key that Diabolico gave Carter to open a tomb to release all the demons. We'll kind of see something similar to this again in Ninja Storm with what Lothar was trying to do. So he manages to save Ryan, but Queen Banshira sends them out of the dimension as Jinxter uses the Omega Megazord to plant the stones. The Life Force Megazord is being used by Batlings to destroy the Aqua Base, and they end up destroying it on their way out using the submarine to escape the exploding Aqua Base. Everybody in awe and shock that the Aqua Base is gone. They come out seeing Carter and Ryan use Carter's little flying bike thing to destroy the Omega Megazord, but the stone falls in place. So they head off to Banshira's temple to try to stop her. They confront Banshira and all of her batlings, and they manage to fend them off. Carter Sparta kicking Banshira into the tomb, but she pulls him in with them. Carter says, "Just close the lid and don't worry about me." But Diabolico comes up and slices Banshira's grip on Carter, showing that Diabolico hates her more than she hates the Lightspeed Rangers. So Carter gets pulled out, temple closes, everything collapses, Mariner Bay is saved, and thus ends the journey of the Lightspeed Rangers. Now, man, I burned through that story really quickly, but it's not as in depth as like in Space or much. I brushed over things pretty easily though. I'm trying to find ways to cut down my story overviews. In Space couldn't be helped. There's a lot to go over there, and there's going to be a lot to go over next time also. So, overall, Lightspeed Rescue, like I said already, I consider it to be one of the underrated seasons. I'll admit there are some bland sections to it, but I do consider it a really enjoyable season. Remember in my Turbo review when I was talking about like compare and contrast between Turbo and Zeo, and I kind of brought up something saying that I did compare and contrast Lightspeed to Lost Galaxy? Well, let me talk about that real quick. Remember in my last video when I said that Lost Galaxy was strong in the character department and villain department, but really not good in the story department? Well, Lightspeed is reversed. I love Lightspeed's story. It's really solid and really fun to watch, and a different approach to certain things, and a vamped up, expanded upon MMPR Season 1 story. But the villains and characters are hit and miss. Let's start off with Carter Grayson, aka Mr. Epic. I talk about characters like this from time to time. Characters that are fine the way they are out of the gate. Taiki in Cross Wars. Marvelous in Gokaiger. King in Koryuger, but a lot of people hate him for that, and I kind of understand why. And then Carter Grayson. He doesn't develop any because he doesn't need to be developed. He does what he wants. He charges at a monster in the first episode in a jeep. He shoots at the giant Olympius and Diabolico with his guns when the Omega Megazord fell. He charged headfirst at Queen Banshira and punched her in the face. Carter Grayson does what Carter Grayson wants. And one of the things that shows it is that when he was fighting those three monsters earlier during the Titanium Ranger arc, he took the rescue bird and fired at point-blank range at the monsters, blowing him and the monsters up. And he just gets out perfectly fine. Carter Grayson does what Carter Grayson wants. He's one of my favorite Reds because of it, too, because he doesn't change, but he doesn't need to change because he's pure awesome the way he is. He's not afraid. But he does have a backstory. He's a firefighter because he wants to live up to one of his personal heroes. When he was a kid, he was saved by a firefighter who he thought sacrificed himself to save Carter. He later finds out that this firefighter is Captain Mitchell. So he's basically trying to live up to be the hero that saved his life. And Captain Mitchell basically sacrificed himself supposedly, or rushed in and took all the blows to save Carter. So I guess that's why Carter does what Carter does. He does what he wants. And I love him for it. Chad is an oddball character. He doesn't really change much, but at the beginning he's assumed to be a swimmer in a SeaWorld showman, but he also shows that he knows many different forms of karate and martial arts. So he has two different functions. He has abilities. He can swim, and he can fight really well. He doesn't really have much of a character, though. He's kind of like the the honorable fighter type guy. Kelsey is a thick-headed, I wouldn't say thick-headed, hot-headed, act first, ask questions later, sportsy girl. She's very athletic and can adapt to situations pretty well because of her athletic nature. But like I said, she's really hot-headed and rushes in without thinking. And there are a few episodes, specifically one where she charges in and gets charges into an exploding building and gets caught in the explosion and almost gets killed because of it. And after that, she does calm down and think about her actions. She does jump in the way and protect some rangers when they think they're going too far also. So I guess it kind of showed up that I'm not rushing in and doing things stupidly, so you aren't either. Joel, I've already been over Joel. As Carter said, Joel's a hot dog. He's At first, he doesn't want to be there and kind of just sticks around to try to grab Miss Fairweather, but he eventually grips onto the idea and fights the good fight his way, while at first trying to just flaunt her and use his fame as a stunt pilot to try to get Miss Fairweather to fall in love with him. He eventually just mellows out and does it his way of being Joel Rawlings and using his actions to speak instead of his showmanship. And he ends up getting Miss Fairweather in the end. Happy day. Guy actually came through. Good job. Good job, Joel. But I like him. I love the fact that a lot of Green Rangers are goofballs, like Bridge, Ziggy, and even Jake now that I think about it. And Xander. Gotta love Xander. Joel is a fun character to watch, and he's a real jokester at times, kind of stroking his own ego from time to time. He's a lovable guy at heart. Dana is probably the weakest next to Chad of the Lightspeed Rangers. She's the Pink Ranger in the dot and the daughter of the captain, and that's about where she stands. She is a paramedic, and there really isn't much to Dana. Then you've got Ryan, who's probably one of my favorite characters in Power Rangers, easily one of my favorite characters in Lightspeed Rescue, because he starts off being fooled by the demons, tricked into being evil, and then he goes through development of soul searching, and he pulls through. I think it's a better scripted story than the Green with Evil arc, because Tommy was basically just turned evil via hypnosis and then got over it afterward. Ryan had to find himself, and then he had to find his place. That was Ryan's whole job. When he joined Lightspeed, he kind of realized that, well, I've been with the demons. I know how to stop them from the inside. So my purpose is to find the way to stop the demons. Your purpose is to save the city from being destroyed. So basically, he was just trying to find his purpose, and he found his purpose, and it ended up being the leading goal to stopping the demons, as he found the key. He found the way to to stop the demons, found the key, informed the Rangers of what Banchero was going to do so they could stop it. Plus, I love the Titanium Ranger suit. I love the Titanium Ranger suit. Ryan is one of my favorite Sixth Rangers because of this. He's not my favorite Sixth Ranger. We'll get to him next season. But he's one of my favorites easily. Now for the villains. I'm not really going to talk about any of them in particular, but I do want to talk about what I think of them. Yes, they're not the space villains. Yes, they're not the Lost Galaxy villains. But I do think the villains for the season are very underrated. Like I said, at the very beginning when it was just Diabolico, Lokai, and Vipra, there really wasn't much there. It was just them trying to, do what demons do, and that's destroy the city. But when Olympius came in, it added some conflict within the villains. Viper and Lokai didn't like her. I just called Olympius a woman. Ha. I didn't like Olympius because he was kind of being a stubborn brat. So when they went to try to resurrect Diabolico, then it had added some conflict with Diabolico and Olympius going at it. Basically, well, not necessarily reminiscent of the Dark Honda Ecliptor struggle and in space, but it did have some similar quirks with them fighting over power and hierarchy. Mostly Olympius trying to get star power back from, or Diabolico trying to get star power back from Olympius. It did add some things like Olympius trying to remove Viper and Lokai from existence. And then at the very end, even Diabolico showed that he'd rather help the Rangers than help Banshira, saving Carter from Banshira's grip and then giving the key to Carter when Carter snapped him out of Banshira's hypnosis. Which is kind of weird, seeing that Diabolico eventually... Well, he said he hated the Rangers, but he hated Diabolico, Queen Banshira and Olympius more. Pretty interesting. So Diabolico had some development. Olympius, he's an okay villain. I do like him because he added conflict, and he made a good rival for Diabolico. So, I mean, yeah, the villains could have been better, but I don't think they're as bad as people claim them to be. So aside from the plot and probably two of my favorite Rangers of all time, Carter and Ryan, and pretty decent villains, there's one aspect of Lightspeed Rescue that I like that makes me keep coming back to the season, and it's the way it's set up. The government-funded organization, military-type style setup. And when I say that this is the one season that I think would be the real-life team, you have to sit back and look at it. If Power Rangers were real, it would be a government-run thing. Kind of like this, an operation, very concealed, where they would build the weapons, build the devices. Everything would be run by a captain and a scientific group and all this stuff. Even the Lightspeed Megazord, how it put itself together. It hooked the legs on and then they raise themselves up, and then Greens grabs Reds and then plants it on top and then reels itself in. Like it has to manually put itself together, not like some things where they fly around and hook together and all this stuff. It looks very reminiscent of how Power Rangers would work in real life, and I do consider this the most realistic season. Now take that word realistic very vaguely because there's a lot of things here, like a flying train. But for the most part, with how it's run, like a base with hierarchy, like a captain, and then the Rangers being the fighters and the science group and all this stuff, it does seem like this is how Power Rangers would work in real life. And I love this approach. I love the kind of like organization type seasons. Kind of like Time Force kind of falls into this category. SPD falls into this category. Overdrive, even though I hate that season with a burning passion, it kind of feels like Lightspeed in a way. RPM, to an extent, feels like this, where the stuff's being made and produced by humans and given to them when they're done. And I like this approach, and this was the season that made me fall in love with that. And it's one of the reasons why I love Lightspeed Rescue so much, because of its feeling and atmosphere and how it's done. And it feels like a real tight organization. It's not just the 5 Rangers fighting monsters. It's the 5 Rangers being the front of the fight, with all of the staff and the scientists and everything in the background helping them grow stronger. And I love this approach. And I don't think any other season did it better than this. Now, granted, there are seasons like SPD, which I think are better than Lightspeed, but I think when it came to the whole like government-run organization thing approach, Lightspeed did it better than any other season, and I just love the feel around this season. So, to put in short, another reason why I like Lightspeed Rescue, on top of all that stuff, is, like I said at the beginning, how it feels very reminiscent to MMPR Season 1. Operation Lightspeed feels like Day of the Dumpster. Demons being released from a tomb. Someone calling in 5 ordinary people into a world of technology to try to fight monsters. An evil ranger who comes in fighting the rangers that have to fight to get him to join them. It has a lot of similar quirks in that department. Magic versus technology. The rangers being technology, the villains being magic. I feel like this is how MMPR Season 1 should have been. Something like this. Except with a little bit more dinosaur history put into it. But all in all, even though Lightspeed has its faults with some of the characters being bland, not much development in the Ranger department, some of the villains being kind of just there for a while, but with a decent story, one of my favorite finales in the franchise, Fate of Lightspeed. Um, I love these costumes. I love the atmosphere of the season. I love how things work in Lightspeed Rescue. I consider this one of the more underrated seasons. I've said this like 3 times already, but I love getting my point across. I love Lightspeed Rescue. It's one of my favorite seasons, and it's probably, in my opinion, the third best Saban era season. Yes, I would go that far. Yes, it has its faults, but I think some of its faults aren't as bad as the things that are right with it. That didn't make any sense. Okay, let me word it this way. The pros outweigh the cons. Yes, there are cons to the season, and they are pretty obvious, but I think the pros outweigh them enough to where it's not that big of a problem. Not like Lost Galaxy where it had pros and cons, but they were kind of even with each other. But let me put it this way: I prefer Lightspeed to Lost Galaxy because I think the characters and villains for Lightspeed are much better than the story for Lost Galaxy. That's how I define it. So, with this fun season out of the way, it's time to move on to another fantastic season, and my personal second favorite season of all time, Time Force. A gem season with so many twists and turns, a great story, great characters, and this was the last season I watched when it aired before Megaforce. A season I've been really looking forward to talking about. I love this season, and we will talk about the timeless wonders, Time Force, next time.